Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into one of the most incredible corporate turnarounds in history, how Apple pulled itself back from the absolute brink of total collapse.
Let's start with a number that should honestly send a shiver down your spine. 90.
That's it, 90 days, 3 short months. After losing over $1 billion in a single year, that's how close the company that basically defines our modern world was to just poof, disappearing. And this wasn't some rumor. This was a fact, later confirmed by Steve Jobs himself. To really get how bad things were, you gotta rewind to the mid-90s. Apple was a mess. The company was in what you'd call a death spiral. Its US market share had cratered to just 4%, totally crushed by the Wintel juggernaut, Microsoft and Intel. And its own product strategy? It was an absolute disaster. Get this, they had 12 different versions of the Macintosh computer. 12! How on earth is anyone supposed to choose? And this story, which is widely attributed to Steve Jobs right after he came back, it just says everything, doesn't it? If the co-founder of the company can't even figure out which product to recommend to a friend, what chance does a regular customer have? So yeah, the company was basically a ship taking on water, fast. It was overloaded with junk, sinking in a storm, and the clock was ticking down. So, in the middle of this total freefall, a very familiar face comes back to take the helm. Steve Jobs returns as interim CEO. Now, what do you think his first big move was? Announce some revolutionary new gadget? Nope. What he did was so much more shocking. I mean, it was unthinkable, especially to the die-hard Apple fans. That's right. He made a deal with the enemy. At the 1997 Macworld Expo in Boston, Jobs gets on stage and announces a partnership with, wait for it, Microsoft. The crowd was stunned. You could actually hear boos when this giant, ominous image of Bill Gates popped up on the screen behind him. I mean, can you imagine the scene? Okay, so the public headline was this $150 million investment from Microsoft. But honestly, that was just camouflage. The real story, the part kept quiet, was a massive, secret settlement. We're talking somewhere between $500 million and maybe even $2 billion that Microsoft paid Apple for stealing its QuickTime code. That was the real bailout. But you gotta ask, why even do the public deal then? Well, for Microsoft, it was a genius move. They were in really hot water with the Department of Justice for being a monopoly. So this investment? It was basically their get-out-of-jail-free card. It was an antitrust insurance policy. They could point to Apple and say, see, we're not a monopoly. We're even helping our biggest rival. So that big settlement was like an emergency pump that sucked all the water out of the sinking ship. It gave them a chance to breathe. But the ship was still way too heavy and was about to go under anyway. Jobs knew that just having a bunch of cash wasn't the answer. The real problem, the disease that was rotting the company from the inside, was complexity. It was paralyzing everyone. So the story goes, he's sitting in these endless product strategy meetings, and he finally just has enough. He grabs a marker, walks up to a whiteboard, and basically yells, "Stop! This is crazy!" And right then and there, he took a figurative machete to their entire product roadmap. 70% of Apple's product line, just gone. Overnight. So how did he do it? How do you decide what stays and what goes? Well, it wasn't some complex spreadsheet or big market analysis. No, it was something so simple it was absolutely brilliant. This is it. This is the entire strategy. He drew this simple little 4-box grid on a whiteboard. It focused the entire company on just 4 products by answering 2 simple questions for the customer. Are you a regular consumer or a pro? And do you need a desktop or something portable you can take with you? That's all that mattered. This was Jobs literally throwing 70% of the useless cargo overboard. And what that did was incredible. It let him put his absolute best people, his A-team, including a young designer named Joni Ive, on just a handful of crucial projects. And maybe most importantly, it made buying a computer simple again. So now, with a financial lifeline, a crystal clear strategy, and a renewed sense of focus, Apple was finally ready to innovate its way back to health. And just look at how fast things turned around. It's mind-blowing. In a little over a year, the company goes from being 90 days away from being completely broke to posting a profit of over $300 million. Just incredible. And that famous Bondi Blue iMac, It wasn't just another computer. It was the physical proof that the new Apple was here. It became the fastest-selling PC in history, it perfectly filled that consumer desktop box, and it became a symbol of a focused, design-led company. So what's the big lesson here? By killing off 70% of its products, Apple didn't shrink its business, it saved it. By getting rid of all that complexity, it made the choice to buy an Apple computer simple again. That crisis, as painful as it was the reset button they desperately needed. And that leaves us with a really powerful question, doesn't it? We're always told that success comes from adding more, doing more, being more. But the story of Apple's comeback proves that sometimes the most powerful and strategic move you can make isn't to add something new. It's having the courage to take something away.